Hi guys, welcome to this breakdown of the 2019 new English HSC standard course focusing on the castle. If you want, you can put on closed captions and try and take notes if you like. I'll be breaking down 4 scenes for you. I mean, in theory it should be enough to write an essay on, but obviously you have other work from your teachers. You can just get a bit of a guide from this particular breakdown. So we're going to start with the wedding scene. This is not actually the wedding scene, it's actually the reception scene, but I think it's referred to as a wedding scene. So here we go and follow on. In the opening scenes of the film, Sitch enables the respondent to have a clear understanding of both the nature of Australian humour, but more importantly, the way our larrikin culture can be misunderstood. Through the use of humour, quote, "Would you stop bussing them plates?" Daryl attempts to endear himself to his new in-laws, namely by telling a joke. However, to a greater extent, Kerrigan is also attempting to illustrate his understanding of Greek culture. This duality in our culture and humour is clearly lost in translation, as the Greek recipients are unaware of its intended purpose, which is one of love. Thus, this is the most crucial part of Sitch's scene, as Daryl Kerrigan attempts of consolidation and affection are misunderstood as a low-grade insult. Many would claim this is also symbolic, as it depicts how our Anglo-Celtic culture can be misrepresented and even derogatory. The director aims to shape our understanding and perception of this snapshot of Australian culture by depicting that our identity is shaped by our values and morals around family, and that the family nucleus is a fundamental part of what defines us. And in this instance, we must also reflect back on our own dealings with family and at times how we might have been misunderstood. The next scene is the jail visitation scene. Now, this is a real interesting breakdown of the language and dialogue used. So just follow on with this one, shall we? The value of family bonds is cleverly played out in the jail visitation scene. In the beginning of the film, one may conclude that Dale's visit to Stephen's correctional facility would have been about setting and humour. However, Sitch sculpts something far more poignant in the nature of this meeting. There is so much value to be attained for both the characters and the responder when fully grasping the purpose of this meeting. The notion actions hold far more sway than complex dialogue is clearly played out in this scene. Many might regard the Kerrigans as simpletons, but their family bond could best be described as ironclad. That's a cliche, don't use it. In just a few words, through the technique of short sentencing and questioning, quote, "How's dad? Good. How's mum? Good," the responder is confronted with the genuine, valid family connection that would be the building blocks of a culture that is based on family togetherness. In this instance, Sitch highlights that socio-economic status or academia have nothing to do with the functioning of a loving family. Sitch illustrates that the beauty of Australian culture and its identity lies within a rich tapestry of connection, endearment and understanding. This enables the director's audience to shape their understanding of Australian culture. And again, don't forget to reflect. This is a new syllabus. Okay, so let's have a look at that famous scene at Bonnie Doon and the famous quote, "How's the serenity?" Now, you could possibly write your whole HSC essay on this certain section because the amount of irony, humour, symbolism and metaphor is just embedded in this scene. But let's just pick a certain few snapshots, so to speak, of this scene, and then we'll go through it. Okay. The value of understanding perception itself is masterfully played out in this scene and the film as general. Through this text, the audience is cajoled and confronted with Kerrigan's unique view of the world, and in many ways, this is an integral part of Australian culture and to a greater extent, the nucleus of our identity. People regard Australians as unique, different, and in some instances even strange. and for the most part, that is based on our unique perception of the world around us. This is clearly depicted in the Bonnie Doon scene. The audience is somewhat shocked at Daryl Kerrigan's love for Bonnie Doon. With its overbearing power lines and consistent flooding, one would wonder what Daryl values in this place. And that's a key word, what we value. But the audience attains this perception and becomes privy to Daryl's unique view of the world of Bonnie Doon. We realise that the physical environment has nothing to do with Daryl's love for this place, rather its isolation with the people he loves that creates the bizarre beauty of the protagonist's home away from home. The most pivotal component of both Daryl and Stitch's analogy will be that the nature of one's existence lies solely in the people they surround themselves with, and not the physical environment. And the quote, "Houses Serenity," aptly portrays this. And this is another example of how it is who we are connected to, not what we are connected to, that makes our identity so unique. The final scene that I'll be analysing today will be the famous Mabo scene. Now, this is a very important scene because I think that this particular motif is key to breaking this film down as part of culture and identity, and at a higher level too. So follow on, and don't forget the closed captions, so if you want to take notes, you can take notes. I must say that before I start, the way closed caption works on YouTube, most of you know, is not on script, it works on voice recognition. So if I speak too fast or unclearly, it might get a wrong word, you'll have to put that in. Okay, so follow on. The constant referencing to Indigenous Australians, and most notably Mabo, is one of the most pivotal directional decisions in the text. The Mabo case of '92 is deeply rooted into Australian cultural history. However, it is the foundation of the Kerrigan matter, and ironically, Daryl Kerrigan, a man who has not always been on side with Indigenous progression. He starts to live through the pain and suffering, for example, a quote, "I'm really starting to understand how Aboriginals feel," Daryl Kerrigan says, and in response, Sal, the wife, "You must be feeling sick." Sitch highlights that the lack of understanding for Aboriginal culture, however, through education understanding, Daryl shows tolerance, and this is a vital component of Australian culture that we're not always noted for example, and that Australians are not given the credit for. And this is one of the things in which Sitch aims to highlight. Now, let's focus on Mabo a little bit more. The most important reference to the Indigenous rights issue occurs in the courtroom. And the Mabo quote that goes with this is, "It's the whole vibe of the thing." Sitch critically analyses and masterfully amalgamates the scientific lineal political construct of the Mabo decision and connects it with the Kerrigan story. Eddie Mabo used the concept of a bloodline, lineage, to prove in a Queensland court that he has a native title claim to a set of islands off the northern coast of Queensland. In winning this case, the Queensland government had to agree that these particular islands had a far greater connection to the Mabo family than they did to the Queensland government and Queensland itself. In the same instance, the Kerrigan matter is based on the same angle of understanding. Number 10, Highview Crescent, Coolaroo, is Daryl Kerrigan's Mabo. He has a lineage line of reproduction on this land, and thus the value the land holds has far more sway in the roots of the Kerrigan family rather than Airlink, which is a consortium. The interesting component about identity in this scene is almost juxtaposed in its nature. Both Kerrigan and Mabo fight for what they believe is theirs. They believe in the family construct, something worth the effort of toil and struggle. In opposition to this, bit of a counterpoint here, is the negative component of our culture. For example, when Daryl quotes, "When will this country stop kicking its own in the guts?" Well, there you have it. That's my quick scene-by-scene breakdown. It's actually enough in terms of writing to write possibly 4 to 5 pages of a HSC essay booklet on. So I hope you've taken something out of that and